So XPLOR Project came about as an idea of how do we, get from point A to point B with minimal electronic help, and everything be manual. No resupply, only had the fuel that we could fit on the boat, water we could fit on, like there was no other stuff, and we had to catch all our protein with our fly rods or by hand. This was kind of the opposite, that we had like 7 days of stuff we want to do, and we had 25 days to do it. We are an adventure company that is really lucky to make boats. If you take happy in one hand and money in one hand, and they are outweighed and they're super lopsided, you're never going to continue to do those things. I love that we hand build the first of everything. I think that means a lot to me. I wanted something that would be able to do that better. I shouldn't say better because that makes it, but like it was built more to take on some bigger water things and try not to compromise the things that it did in shallow water. I'm also not a small person. My goal has been to make sure that it checks all of those other boxes. And I think if you look at like our X7, which is a big carbon boat, like it's got the ability to be a big boat when it needs to be a big boat. But man, it's a heck of a small boat too when you want to get in and start pushing around like our grass fishing and stuff here. And that was the seed for me growing up that let me get out and go do that thing. So it's thank God for little bass ponds in the neighborhood.
Tell me what, exactly.
That's about as good as it gets.
Are you ready yet?
Yeah, man.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Skiff Wanderer Podcast. Today, I am in Columbia, South Carolina, at XPLOR Boatworks with Frankie Marion.
Yeah, man.
Man, I haven't been back. I grew up in Columbia, and I haven't been back in Columbia since 2015.
Well, I joke around that, like, I never ask if anybody ever comes to Columbia because, like, there's no reason that, unless you're a Gamecocks fan, there's not really a lot of reason to come here. But, no, it's funny talking before we started this, how small the world is, that like my kids are going to the school where you went to high school. It's funny, but it's great to have you here. We love having people come by, and I've watched a lot of your stuff as well, and it's cool to see people going out and doing stuff that drives them. We stated from the beginning that XPLOR is an adventure company that's really fortunate to make boats.
Yeah.
And our whole thing has been to just get people exposed and get out on the water. And I don't, no matter what kind of boat you have, like let's go. We talked a little about your Sabine. Brian's a friend of mine too, and really have a lot of respect for those guys and love what they're doing. And it's just awesome to get people together that share that kind of adventure spirit. I know that it's I'm just turned 46 last week, and I still feel like I have the maturity level of probably a 16-year-old, but I still want to go and go do, and like that. It's a dangerous passion to have.
Oh yeah,
because I've lost a lot of schooling, jobs. It's all kidding aside, it's a absolutely magical thing to be able to go do and to be able to share it with people and to be able to hear some of your adventures with the stuff that you've done. It's been really cool.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I want to get into some of your adventures. We talked about them a little bit beforehand. So where'd you grow up? When did you start fishing and hunting?
I grew up in Greenville, South Carolina, which is about 100 miles kind of west of here, up kind of at the base of the mountains, and never was drawn to the mountains. I was really lucky that as a kid, my uncle was big into fishing. My dad and grandfather had been around boats a bunch too, but like the big game fishing side of things, I really got exposed to that at an early age and got to go travel and do some stuff that my aunt and uncle were just super cool to be able to include us in. But I say super cool, like I joke around that like half the time I really wish I hadn't had that taste put in my mouth because my life would be a whole lot easier. But it was my thing from little. Like I loved to bass fish. I loved to. My mom would drop us off at a little pond around the corner from the house all day, and we would sit there and bass fish. And I think that that just all of the things that shows you in your life, and that teaches you from a faith standpoint, from a humility standpoint, from a, I have tried to pass that forward to my kids, that like the decision that you get to make for some other creature, whether you be hunting or whether you be fishing, and to honor that and to really enjoy the process, because you get so much nowadays into, caught so many here, shot so many here, whatever. And I think if that, you're missing some of the point of being out there for all that. But I was lucky that I had some really good people from our church when I was little that made me slow down and take some of that stuff in, and really just confirm that that's what I wanted to do. Not that I didn't want to go limit out or fill the box up, but just had some really good mentors in the earlier part of my life. My dad wasn't a big hunter, big boat guy, loved to fish, but had some guys in our church that really kind of took me under their wing and showed me a lot of what to do. And from there, I really got into hunting. I loved to shoot birds and duck hunting stuff. And when I got to college, I went to a couple of different colleges, but ended up at the University of South Carolina. And go Gamecocks. That's a hard one I'm very much a fair weather fan.
This is a tough week to talk about the Gamecocks.
Yeah, it is. But really enjoyed my time here in it, and the program that I was in here at the university really fostered entrepreneurship, and so was pushed to go, chase the passion that I had, and that was in the fishing side of things, and ended up going to work in the hunting industry and as a rep, and then started a clothing company and traveled all over the world doing that, and then the whole other time fishing and traveling, doing the big game side of things, doing blue marlin, black marlin, stuff like that. And and then had always been around boats and been a part of a couple of bigger boat builds in a very, very obscure, nothing that would deem me an expert at anything. But just was always fascinated by the design of that stuff. My uncle was a naval architect for Hatteras yachts back when I was little, and worked at a boat dealership, and so I'd always have the magazines and draw pictures of boats and all that stuff. And never in a million years thought be doing what we're doing right now, but just was really the adventure side of it, and going and kind of the no boundaries of the water. There are boundaries. You just got to go a long damn way versus, going hunting or something and you walk to the edge of your property line. But yeah, that kind of spirit was put in me by a handful of different people, my parents included, that didn't hold me back from going to do that, and laugh and talking about, I hope I can trust my kids as much as my parents trusted me, because we did a lot of dangerous things that they didn't really know about. But, got into the fishing stuff. I've worked in this industry for 25 years, in some shape or form, and started taking pictures for my fishing clothing company that I had, and that kind of led to I couldn't afford to pay anybody to do our media stuff, and this was the first digital camera had come out, and so started doing that and really enjoyed that medium as far as trying to extract what I wanted out of something. I knew nothing about didn't know anything about how to set a camera up or any of that stuff, but just learned through failure, and that kind of led to that being a little sideline hobby and not really a business of any. And 2008 recession came and my business went away with that, and started helping people market product. I had a really unique background on that I've worked with every portion from big box stores to, working with factories overseas and building stuff, and had a unique take on what it took to market something, and was able to get in with some good outdoor companies and some good local companies as well that helped me start a business and start doing more film stuff. And that kind of led to me learning more and more about how to try to get my ideas out of my head onto a screen or a picture, and came back around to always wanting to have this adventure that was I'm trying to figure out how to explain, but it was like that had substance to it. Not that anybody's adventure doesn't have substance, but like on my terms. And as a kid, to go to the library when I was little and like, rent books and take them home and read all these stories about these guys that were, at the turn of the century and stuff, were like having to hunt their way across somewhere, fish their way across somewhere. And it just fascinated me that like, that's what those guys got to go do. And so I wanted to try to create something like that was like we talked about earlier, where you had to like really stake a skill that you felt like you were good at and play something that was valuable on it. And so XPLOR Project came about as an idea of how do we, get from point A to point B with minimal electronic help and everything be manual. And I think that's what has always drawn me to fly fishing. I didn't get started into fly fishing until probably 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. Nathaniel Linville down at the angling company, really good friend of mine that I filmed a lot with, and he kind of helped teach me, or at least get me going on that. And but I bow hunted since I was 9 years old, and I feel like those two things kind of.
I think there's a lot of, especially saltwater fly fishing, where you're stalking a flat, you're stalking a fish, and you're trying to figure out how to make the best approach to them. Yeah,
the freshwater stuff doesn't do fit for me. And nothing against it. I get the nostalgia around it, but I can't. It doesn't do it for me.
No.
I really like the hunting element of it, and I like the teamwork portion of it on a skiff, to where it's two guys doing two things that you can't buy. Like you have to earn it. Like you got to earn learning how to push a boat around. And you're never the best at it. Like you're never mastered it. Even guys like Dustin and John O'Hearn and those guys in the Keys that are just constantly pushing boats around. Like they still have days where they're like, damn it, this thing didn't go where I wanted to go. But I think that's what's so cool about it. I think honestly that's what makes it such a draw, and what made these trips so fun is that like you were walking into some form of failure, and you were walking into some form of like, damn, this is hard today. And I think that's what keeps you coming back for more. I think you get to these things that are easy. And it's not saying that like, look, I don't some days want to go out and just blister them, and that's a fun day too. But like, I think the things that just kind of eat away at the back of your head is, man, I wish I could have made that cast, or I wish that we could have made that shot, or those birds came in, or I moved when that deer shouldn't, when he was looking, I shouldn't have been doing that. I think that's what draws you to kind of the long-term love of these pursuits, is that they're tough. And I think that's what's kept me in this. And I'd say the bow hunting side of things, from when I was a kid, I could practice not there. Like I could go in my backyard and I could go shoot some arrows. And I've taken that same thing with throwing a fly rod, that like I used to stand in my backyard on a cooler and fish pine cones in my backyard just to try to practice moving from fish to fish. And I think that's what really made it super enticing to me, was that, man, I would love to be able to be on a flat here fishing there, but like the reality of it is that I'm not. I've got two young boys and I want to be there with them, but I still want to be able to embrace this part of what I love to do. And as a kid bow hunting, like I was relying on my parents to take me to a farm to go hunt, and man, it was cool to be able to practice in my yard. And John O'Hearn and I talked at length about this one day fishing, that like the mental practice is almost every bit as important as the real practice. And so picturing those things in your head when you're doing it and all that it was cool. And it led me to here. And I just completely just can't be more thankful and blessed for where we are and the people that we get to work with and the product that we get to make, and what we get to watch these things go do, and run into new people like you that we get to be buddies with. And it's just it's an awesome life to have been a part of. And so I've had a lot of support around me and most of my life around pursuing your passion. And I think now I tell my kids now, like, there's never been a better time to go do it. Just it just takes the same amount of work. If you want to go be a neurosurgeon, or you want to be a podcaster, a YouTuber, a boat builder, like, it's the same amount of work.
Yeah.
And the people that think it's not are fools. But, it's all of this stuff that I've been able to do has taken a little bit of crazy to bite off some of these things.
I still get when I tell people what I'm doing now, the looks I get, and it's like, man, I'm doing what I want to do every single day, and I'm working just as hard as you are, but, my day consists of me on a boat with a camera.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that, and I've talked to, people that we hire here at XPLOR and telling my kids too, that like there's a commodity in every transaction. Like there's the easy one is money. Like, I want a Dr. Pepper. It costs $1.89, and here's $1.89. Here's my Dr. Pepper. But like when you start to look at what you want to do with your life, and I don't mean this from like philosophical standpoint, but like what you want to do, obviously there's economics of your household and what you have to do to pay for that. But a currency that I think is way overlooked and not kind of dealt in enough is happiness. And I think it's an equal, like, if you take happy in one hand and money in one hand, and they are outweighed and they're super lopsided, you're never going to continue to do those things because it either doesn't make you enough money and the happy again, or it makes, those things are out of balance. And so I think we're super fortunate to where, and I tell everybody here in this plant, like a currency that we really want to trade in a lot is happiness here. And we want to make sure, we're super lucky that we build a product that's bought from a place of joy. And I think every boat builder has that purchase that's so special that I'd argue you don't see it in really anywhere else, that it's a primal joy that, you take somebody out on the water and if you got in a hurricane and come back, that ship that was awful, but weather looks good next Wednesday and we probably give it another try. You get that. So, we are in a really fortunate place to where our customers come to us with a lot of joy, and we should reciprocate that joy in what we do. And so it's really important to me that like happiness is a currency that we trade in a lot. And I think if you walk through our plant and you see the people that work here, that there's a lot of happiness exuded in them going through their day helping us build these incredible things that we get to build. And I think that says a lot about who we are and how fortunate we are to be here, that like that is something that I don't want us to ever lose sight of, and that we get to participate, and we're fortunate enough to be chosen with, there's some amazing boats built and some super talented guys in this industry that are, I'm a huge fan of. Like if somebody traded in one of theirs, it probably would go storage somewhere as opposed to getting sold, but like just a fan. And we're lucky that there's enough people that like to do this, that they have their people and we have our people, and we help their people and they help our people. And it's just been a great community to be in, and a great industry to be fortunate enough to be a part of. And but yeah, when I first started this, people would be like, "You're gonna do what? Like build a flats boat in Colombia? You're 90 miles from the ocean, like you lunatic!" I'm like, my wife works here, so I kind of got to be here. But I think we've gotten past some of that, and we got a great group of folks here. We wouldn't have been able to do this had we not been in Colombia. And our reach is a long way around the world now, which is fascinating that we have people all over the world that are in our boats and sending us pictures from places, and it's been awesome. So yeah, that was probably a good ADD roundabout way of where I came from and where I started. But this is where we are now, and it's just pinch me, man, because it's so cool to be able to do what we do, even with all the stress and stuff we're growing a business. We are an adventure company that is really lucky to make boats.
So we talked a little bit about, I think, kind of the inspiration behind XPLOR. It was a couple trips that you did, and they're very similar to some of the stuff that I do with Skiff Wanderer in terms of just taking a skiff, living off of it. I want you to talk a little bit about those trips, about the skiffs you used, and kind of how that led into building your own skiffs.
So the first XPLOR project that we did was in Andros Island in the Bahamas, and it was kind of centrally located at a specific camp like area that we felt like we could work out of. there were a lot of rules to the self-imposed rules that we put on kind of what we wanted to do. So I wanted it to be hard, and I wanted it to be a logistical challenge, just to say, okay, here's what you got, and this all it's all you get. And so we'd had Maverick was our partner for the first one, and we had a 17 HPX that Solomon Murphy, who's a guide friend of mine over in the Bahamas, had, and so we would use his boat. Solly was going to go with us and show us around, and it was just fascinating how. Well, let me start. No resupply, only had the fuel that we could fit on the boat, water we could fit on, like there was no other stuff, and we had to catch all our protein with our fly rods or by hand. So that was kind of the parameter set, and trying to fit 3 guys' gear on a 17-foot Maverick HPX is a challenge. Great boats. Maverick's an exceptional company. But
those skiffs get small real fast.
Yeah, they get small real fast. We have tents, and a 50-gallon fuel canister. And, I was joking around that we looked like we were like making a run for it. We almost had to put the boat in gear before we untied it to make sure that it would like get up and move. But fascinating, life-changing trip as far as how I really would like to see the new places, and that you typically go on a trip and you're like, well, I got 4 days, like I gotta get all this in 4 days. So there's no time to stop and really just sit and watch for a little bit, because you have all these things you want to go do, and you only have 7 days worth of stuff you want to try and do in 4 days. Whereas this was kind of the opposite, that we had 7 days of stuff we want to do, and we had 25 days to do it. So we could go and really slow down and say, man, we really have fun doing that. Let's go do that again for a little bit. And, you went to bed when the sun went down, and you woke up when the sun came up. Like, you didn't flip the lights on. And you're only eating, what you caught. And we took some bell peppers and onions and tortillas as far as stuff that we could pack that wouldn't really age out. But it was crazy how much your body responded to eating things that were no preservatives, fresh, done, all the stress left you, all the headaches, all that stuff. And we always laugh. We got done, we're man, we're going to live like this forever. And then you had the first Burger King, you're like, oh man, let's go get a Whopper. But it was incredible what the transformation your body underwent, even down to your night vision, in that we're so used to flipping on a light and flipping off a light that your eyes have to react so quickly. Whereas, you're sitting there and you're getting this gradual light reduction, and your eyes can really, you could see the Milky Way with your naked eye down there. It was stuff, that little things that I didn't ever think I would notice, but it was cool to go see that anyway. So we spent 2.5 weeks there, filmed that whole thing. Had like I said, I could talk for days on that, but had an incredible time, and really, and filmed the whole thing, and did a short film piece for an international film tour, and then split it into about 8 to 10 pieces of short episodic content. And had a great response, and a lot of people enjoyed watching it. And it was something that after I got back on, I wanted to do again. And the boat was kind of and this is nothing against Maverick, but the boat was kind of our shortcoming piece, just because it wasn't designed to hold the gear set of stuff that we wanted to do. You fit all this stuff in all these hatches. It didn't work. We needed a pullable Carolina skiff, to fit all this stuff in. So came back, talked to Charlie Johnson down at Maverick to see if we could get an 18 hull, just bare. And it ended up not working out with that. That just didn't fit their production schedule timeline, which is understandable now, much more understandable. And so started looking around at who could help me build this, and talked to a few custom builders, and ended up working with Harry Spears, a super guy, an absolute, legend of a dude to hang out with. His stories and listen to him talk and all the stuff he's seen is just, man, he's a mess. He's a first-rate legend for sure. And I happened to talk to Harry yesterday out of the blue, which was great. And we came up with this thing. We're going to give ourselves 7 days to build this boat from scratch. So I got in my garage and and taped out on the floor what the size of the boat I thought needed to be, and started packing everything I thought we needed into the shape to see what it, where it wound up, and took those measurements and went down to Harry's place in Panacea, Florida, and in 7 days built this boat. And I laughed with you earlier that we dried the gel coat out on 995 coming home, but what I didn't think about was I set this boat on the trailer that had carpet bunks on it and bonded the carpet on the bottom of the boat to the trailer. So we went to launch it the first time and it would not come off the trailer. And and up until we got back, there was 2 strips of shag carpet fibers down the bottom of the boat the whole time. So it was probably a little bit slower than it should have been because of that. But built this really bare bones basic boat out that was really flat bottomed, had a little bit of entry on it. But it was designed to carry a lot of weight, very shallow. And the initial test we did with a 60 horsepower motor on the back, 23 miles an hour was about my jam as far as fuel economy and being able to carry that type of load. It was 1,600 pounds of stuff in it when we got with 3 people, gear, fuel, water, all that. So the boat had to be built really light to kind of offset that weight setup. We needed to be to where, think about a normal skiff, with the load on it, you probably wanted around 1,100 pounds, 1,100 pounds of motor fuel in that. Then you throw 3 people in there, and I'm not a small dude, and other guys weren't either. So you throw another 800 pounds in the boat, 700 pounds in the boat. You're right there at that mark of about 1,600 pounds. So we had to build the boat to 400 pounds, and it was light. It was light. You took everything out. In it. Yeah, you had to have the weight in it. And we started right outside of Golden Isles, Louisiana, with that, and we had a really unique setup that a lot of that stuff's filmed is on XPLOR Boatworks website. If anybody want to go watch that again, but film the whole build process. Really, really fascinating time with Harry down there, and had a good time watching him go through his process. Help and us working together, getting that stuff done, and did that whole trek, and we wound up to the Chandelier Islands, and then back into Hopedale, Louisiana. I think when we turned to come home, it was 82 miles. I think to run back to the boat ramp from there, and it was blowing 35.
Yeah, you didn't pick a close point to run a Chandelier from.
No, and we did. Well, funny story. It was a flood, it was a supermoon that week, and so the way we had this boat set up, it had 2 paddle boards on either side. I think I was showing you some of that earlier. But we used them as they would double as beds, and we needed them too. But they were good gear tables once we got set up, because they were about waist high, and you could put your stuff on them. And so what we do when we got to where we wanted to camp, if we could, the boat was set up to where we could sleep and live on the boat, but we could also ideally didn't want to sleep on the boat with all this stuff on it. So we load everything on the paddle boards and we just slide them off onto the beach. Yeah. And so it was a nice gear hauler as well as it was anything else. And so we get out there, it's dead low tide, which I did not think about. Put everything on these paddle boards, pull them up on this island, and then we went to go fish because we hadn't anything to eat in a day as far as protein goes. So we go out and end up fishing longer than we want to. And where we come from here in South Carolina, our tides are 4 times a day, and they're big, and it's really noticeable. And when the water's moving out, it's moving. And versus there where it kind of washes back and forth twice a day, but didn't pay any attention. And I get back to where we're going, and the paddle boards are just floating. There's nothing left of the islands that we were going to sleep on. So and the wind fell out. It was beautiful. This moon was coming up. It's 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, man, we should just go to the Chandeliers. It's 40. If I run at the moon for 2 hours, we're going to run into some land. That's kind of how we went about, Larry went about it. So we loaded the boat up, 2 guys with me, Justin Hodge and Rich, went to sleep on the floor, and I put the boat at 22 miles an hour, and we went for 2 hours. And I think it's 11:45 midnight. The moon's huge. It's it feels pretty light outside, and we hadn't run into anything yet. And So I pulled the motor back, shut the motor down, and we're just sitting there. And I remember heard a seagull or something like that. I was like, well, there's got to be something nearby. And so we just kind of sat for like 10 minutes and caught this little relief south of us, probably about 6 miles. Like, well, there's something down. Let's aim that way. Like, maybe my compass has been messed up. It's happened before. Let's go check that out. So we ended up running down. We found this tiny little island. It was just Freemason's Island inside the chandeliers, and it looks like a boot. So it's like super skinny on the upper end. I'm like, this is gonna suck if like this is what this island looks like, because it was like 15 feet wide. There's nowhere for us to be. So we get down to the end. Finally found a place set up and camp and all that, and it's funny, it was low tide at that point, so this island was humongous. And we just like, God was looking out for us, and this one's like not going to let us pull some bonehead move again, like where we threw our paddle boards out on a disappearing island. But we set our camps, our tents up, and when the water came up, it was the only 2 dry spots on the top of the island. Like, we're sitting there, like, wake up in the morning, like, man, I hear water, like, and open the tent up, and like, all the islands down there, they're shell. Mm-hmm. We have sand here. The water goes around them, not through it. And down there, the water goes all through it. And, we had that happen. We had the boat flipped over on the beach the next morning when the storm came through and, like, capsized the boat on the beach. And, like, there's a picture here I can show you on the way up. But you can see where the anchor drug all the way down the beach before the boat flipped. And, it was an awesome adventure. Like, awesome. And came back from that, and then I had somebody ask about building a boat, and I never thought that was like really a possibility. And went back and chatted with Harry a little bit. We were going to kind of team up and do something. I couldn't kind of get the organization of it correct, and so I took and brought that boat back here and kind of cut the bottom off and restarted building what I felt like would be better suited for some of the stuff we have up here, and definitely didn't want to take anything away from Harry as far as that goes. I do have a lot of respect for him, and wanted it to be my own thing and not and legitimately be my own thing. And so that's what we did. Came back and took a saw and cut the bottom of the boat off, and had a guy up in Anderson, South Carolina named Kenny Whitehouse, who's an incredibly talented guy, help me with some of the plug building of it and started, and just kind of went to the local bank here and rolled the dice and signed on the dotted line for everything that I didn't have, and started building the first one. And I was commuting to Anderson every day, which is 2.5 hours from here, and finally found a shop here that was an hour on the other side of Lexington. You know where that is, but all the way across town. And just from there, like, built one, and finally got the bottom where I thought it was right, testing it, running it, all those different things, and built a mold, and learning on all this stuff as I went, and made a lot of mistakes, like a lot of personnel mistakes, but mistakes that taught me a ton. And once you got that done, and started building a couple of boats and messing up a ton. Like, I think the worst term in the marine industry is marine grade. Like, that will get you in more trouble from marine grade wire. Like, I can just say that one, like, still has left a stamp on me, where we used marine grade wire and ended up having to go replace a bunch of it in the early boats. But yeah, I mean, just at that point, like, starting to see this thing that really had driven me start to affect other people, and being able to take some of the stuff that I learned from being around big boats, and try to apply it to what these little boats did, and it worked. And I laugh, like, I was showing you earlier, like, we still build our plugs and everything, like, one off at a time. And we typically, on the smaller boats, like, we go run the plug throughout. And, like, I would take a generator, a grinder, and a bunch of Bondo to the boat ramp and, like run it. Oh, that didn't work. Grind this off, add this, run it over and over and over and over and over again to where you get to the point where you're like, oh, well, if this did this and that does that, then maybe this will do this. And, you're sitting there with a putty knife, like putting the boat bottom back together. And while it seemed like a archaic task at the time, like the understanding that it's given me for what makes our boats do what they do or how to get them to do what they do, it's been like a master's degree in that. And it's still a lot wrong. I have a couple of naval architects that I'll call back. Am I thinking right? If this does this, this is applying this kind of pressure and this needs to change. Yeah or no,
Yeah.
But it's sad to see some of that stuff going away, like in getting computers doing these things.
Yeah.
I think the romance of building a boat or building a ship has been the guy that and the craftsmanship that knows how to do it. And I'm not saying any of those other ways are not equally as skilled, like that it takes a level of understanding period to go do that. But I love that we hand build the first of everything. I think that means a lot to me. And nothing's perfect. We still have a human, I joke around that all our machines are humans, and, we still have a mess up every now and again of fixing this or that, or man, that didn't work out like we thought it would work out. But, I think people respect us for that, and I appreciate that. And I love that we can speak to the reason of why our boats do specific things. And, I've talked to some other, boat building folks that they can't do that about their boats. And, I wouldn't want to be in that position with what we make, especially as much as these things cost now. I feel like I should know how this interacts with the water and does what it's supposed to do. And we've got a good team of people here around that help, that all know that stuff too and contribute to that think tank of how these things are supposed to go. But yeah, I hope that answered that long way about that question.
So what makes your skiffs, I guess, different? I mean, I know we talked about how they're built, what the process you went through, but like on the water kind of.
Well, I think if you look at where a lot of this started and where it's going, as far as, initially when you said, I'm going to go get a technical poling skiff, there's Hells Bay and there was Hughes and Maverick and they were all great boats, but all really catered to a very specific place, which is Florida, whether it be Indian River Lagoon or the Keys or those places, which are very unique ecosystems as to what they call for out of a boat, and that Texas is the same way. Right. Texas has almost got its own world over there as far as the kind of boats people use, and they don't work other places. No. Like some of these catamaran things and all that are just wildly successful in Texas, they don't do it over here. And I think as you see that style of fishing start to grow and, the secret is out of how cool it is, you start to see different places go, well, man, if they're doing like that, we could do that here. Like in Montauk, where you have this sight fishing stripers, striper fishing that you can do out of a poling skiff on flats. To get from the ramp to there requires a whole different animal, as if I'm launching an Indian River Lagoon and I'm running around in there. So I think that the thing that I've looked at is, where we are here in South Carolina and some of the fisheries that we have locally, whether it be Winyah Bay, Charleston Harbor, under Beaufort, Savannah, our tide and our wind interaction with the tide gives us a whole different set of variables going into a day. One, we don't have an all-day fishery here. You're picking and you're going to fish in the morning till then and you're going to come back. And you may have to cross 2 or 3 really large bodies of moving water to get there, which, Winyah Bay or Charleston Harbor, if it's 10 out of the Northeast, 12 out of the Northeast, it could be 4 feet in the river, 6 feet in the river. And, I'm not saying that any of those boats I mentioned wouldn't do that. They clearly do. They do it. There's a lot of people that have those boats here. But I wanted something that would be able to do that better I shouldn't say better because that makes it, but like it was built more to take on some bigger water things and try not to compromise the things that it did in shallow water. I'm also not a small person. I'm 6'4", 260, and that does not function well on some of those little, like a super skiff. Like I've gone back now and looked at gotten on one or two of those. I mean, I don't know how the heck, like we filmed off one of these for so long. But I wanted it to be, I felt like if we could go through and say, okay, is it pull as good or better? Does it draft as shallow as shallower? Does it ride as good or better? Like if we did all those things and they were as good or they were better, and the only difference is we were bigger, that we would win a handful of those kind of battles to what we're going to do. Because nobody's going to really complain about more space when you're on the water. Like I get it with your garage, it doesn't fit or something like that, but nobody's going to complain about, well, I got another foot of deck space in the front that I can move around on, or I got a little more stability here because the boat's a little bit bigger. And so that's been kind of our MO with the technical polling skiff side of things, as to how do we make this thing do big boat things from a small boat package.
Which is like, especially like when you look at a lot of the guides on the South Carolina coast, especially like, those guys, a lot of them are running two boats. They'll have a polling skiff for the days they can use it, and then the days they can't, a lot of them end up with like a 23, 25-foot bay boat.
Correct.
So if you can find a boat that where they only have to have one, they can do both.
Well, and I'm definitely not making that claim. Like that we have the one that will do all, because I don't think that they make that.
No, no.
But definitely having, I think if you look at like what if you're going to have a business doing it, I think it's a whole different discussion than if you're going to get it something for fun. If you're going to have a business doing it, obviously you need to be in something that's allowing you to generate revenue for your business most days per month. And that's not always a like technical polling skiff. Like some days it's got to be a tour boat, and some days it's got to be a popping cork boat, and some days it's got, like all those things it's got to be able to do. And I'm super proud of the fact that I think ours do a lot of those things, and that for the guys that are, the bay boat crowd that's looking at skiffs, that, man, you can fish 2, maybe 3 people out of one of our boats, where you might not be able to do it out of another one, just from a size standpoint. We do have an alternative for that, and we're not the only company that does. There's other boat companies that do the same thing, but my goal has been to make sure that it checks all of those other boxes. And I think if you look at like our X7, which is a big carbon boat, like it's got the ability to be a big boat when it needs to be a big boat. But man, it's a heck of a small boat too when you want to get in and start pushing around, like our grass fishing and stuff here, and bone fishing in the Keys, and the places where draft is a thing that you got to worry about. And then our X13, as far as like a big water boat, granted, I'm partial to it, but I haven't ridden on too many boats that ride like that at speeds that it does, and still pole really well. And then going through the interior layout of the boat, really trying to like move through the movements of what are you going to be doing every day? Like how are you going to interact with this hatch lid? Like what kind of gear are you going to be putting in out of there? If you have this, and how are you going to, are you taking a backpack with you that like is your ditch bag that you don't really think you're going to get to every day? You need a place for that that's accessible but doesn't really interfere with your stuff in every day. Like I always hated when you're sitting on the back seat and you're exhausted and the guy's like, hey, can you get up real quick so I can get in this thing? So we tried to go through and think about that and get as much like real world advice from people. I think that's one of the hardest parts about doing this, is like being able to take the constructive criticism that's because everybody's got an opinion on some of this stuff, but be able to take and aggregate that and pull off kind of what's worth addressing and fixing, and what like is kind of specific, but going to try to really be in the mindset of how is this going to be used, like. And two, when you get into like our X18, our Delta 18, and then the 24, and then the boats that we have upcoming, to where like try to design the interior layout of the boat to where the customer is not hindered in what they can do based on the boat's layout, but that they can like really make it their own, which has led to a lot more of like open floor plans in the boats to say, like on our 24, like, are we going to go commercial king mackerel fishing today, or are we going to go on a booze cruise with 3 couples and go to a nice dinner?
I was looking at one of the X24s that you had in there, and the one thing that I always look at is like, could I fly fish off this? And I was looking, I was like, okay, the front platform, like you could definitely stand up there, no problem. I wonder what it would take to get under gunnel rod holders so I could put fly rods on them. I was like, oh, you already have them in there.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, well, and then, I'm looking at the tower. I'm like, okay, I can easily put a setup to go troll for, in Texas, like, you don't have to go super far to get on mahi and wahoo and stuff. And I was like, this boat would kill it over offshore in Texas.
And the thing the thing that we tried to do with that boat was make it to where it had a lot of offshore DNA in it, as far as like the interior, that it's a 3-piece boat with tow kick all the way around. I'm really big on like 3 points of contact on a boat when you're like in the ocean like that. The stability, the lateral stability to where you could fish 4 people off one side. Bottom fishing, we do a lot of grouper fishing here and really enjoy that. The ability to have undergunnel rod plugs to run electric reels, to have outriggers to go troll offshore, to have a big enough fish box to where you could fit, limited dolphins in there, or 4 or 5 yellowfins. I mean, it's got a 90-gallon insulated kill box in the floor. Like, I guess just trying to go back and look at the boats that I've been impacted by, and we had a great friend of mine had a lot of 31 contenders that I took care of for him, and that we did everything on those boats. And, that whole CV conch kind of feel that I've always really liked those boats, that they didn't have a lot in them, and I could make them mine. Like I could go in and whether it be with bean bags or with some pipe work, like really make the boat do what I wanted to do. And I think that's one of the things that, like, if you go to a boat show and you walk and you see a boat from afar and you see the lines of it and you're like, man, this thing's really pretty. And you go peek your head over the top and you're like, ooh, like, I don't know what they thought I was going to use this boat for. Like, I don't think it'll work for me because I like to do this. And I didn't want that. I felt like that was irresponsible for the amount of money that is being asked for this thing. Like, it should not hinder your ability to do what you want to do. And it should be able to morph and conform into what you want to do. Like, it's the way it should work. And so that's kind of where we, do we need to add this? Like, I didn't want a flat deck forward. I hate that. I don't think it's for what we do here. I think it's unsafe. Like, I think if you look and let's say we're going to Dynamite Hole in Charleston, we're going to go try and catch bull reds, and we're going to anchor up there. Like, the minute that I do that I put the anchor down or I spot lock, like an Olympic gymnast can't balance on the bow of the boat. Like, it's just too rough. And I should be able to do that safely. And so making it to where there's enough forward space to where you're really in the boat, but you can still fish the front of the boat. And to where when you do step up on our platform, you still have like a lip. You saw like 6-inch and like it just keeps you in the boat, and it gives you like a boundary that kind of helps you stay in there. And that's my opinion. That's like not the gospel by any means, but like I feel like I've been around it enough and I've seen enough of that stuff go to where it's like we are on a 24-foot boat, not a 42-foot boat, a 24-foot boat. Every square foot of that boat needs to be accessible in most conditions because it's not a giant boat. Like, and we're going to take 5-6 people out on that and pack them all in the back of the boat, like, and just ignore the front 12 feet. Like, we got to find a way to make sure that this thing is like 100% usable or 90% usable, to where on a normal day of doing that, of going offshore, and if we're going trolling or going bottom fishing, that it'll be able to like check that box. And I'm not saying be the best at that box, but I'm saying be able to participate in that activity, and then be able to come back in and still do the same, be able to do the marsh, shallow water things. And, our 24 is an exceptional tool. Like we built, I think maybe 30 or 40 of those boats. We hadn't built a ton of them yet. It just is kind of getting its wings right now. But to come here and be able to run 50 miles offshore and then come back in and fish a flood tide off of it, says a lot about what that boat can do, and the way that it rides and the way that it runs, and our pad setup on the bottom of that boat, and how, and why it is set up like that. Like our pad is really elongated on the bottom of that boat so that it lifts the whole hull vertically. Like, so when you trim, it doesn't pick the bow up; it lifts the entire boat up. Which, last time I checked, the better ride is the sharper part of the boat. So we'd like to leave that in the water at higher speeds. So it lets us run the boat at higher speeds really flat to where we can attack the river chop we were talking about before. Like I can run 55, 60 miles an hour in that comfortably, and the boat not bow steer and move around and lean or whatnot. So yeah, that's a boat that like I've lost more sleep over. I've lost all my hair over. But we're building the best 24s that we've ever built right now. And I think that, if you're chasing something like that, you almost want it to be unachievable, like to where you're constantly reaching for it. And we're constantly getting better every day at what we do, whether we thought out the way that this wire needs to move through here, or we've thought about how to support this. Like, we are in a constant state of evolution on how do we get better at what we do. From, do we change the laminate schedule to offset some weight here? Is there 2 to 3 pounds? Like, I don't know that there's, we really challenge ourselves on evolving the running surfaces of our boat, how we put them together on every one of our boats to get the most performance out of the least amount of horsepower. Our 24 with a 300 prop to do it will touch 70 miles an hour. Normal setup with a tower, 300 Mercury prop to like pick up a load is 55, 60 miles an hour. I don't know many other boats that do that with that light horsepower. I mean, with the 225, it gets almost 8 miles per gallon, and still runs 57 miles an hour. While speed isn't everything, obviously, it's nice to have that in your back pocket if you need to get out of somewhere quick. But it enables us to run lower speeds at much more efficient consumption rates. Like we're able to run a 300 tower boat with a modest load. I'm not saying like, oh, dang, we're going all day kind of load, but with like a normal load at getting 4 or 7 miles per gallon out of that thing, which means less fuel, which means less cost of operation. And I think if you go through, like, a big part of us is, how do we make these boats easy to use? How do we make them affordable to go run? Now, granted, somebody that's spending $180,000 on something, are they going to be sweating $50?
No, right.
You say no, but like, they didn't get that $180,000 from not sweating $50 either. And I think if you can make it more efficient, it's just less barrier of entry to go use. If like you get in one of our Delta 18s and you got $8, and we can go fish the whole afternoon on $8, like that's awesome. That you can go have this really low barrier of entry into going to participate in this thing, has been in the front of our brain when we're laying this stuff out. So it's we still have a ways to go, but it's been cool to go through and see how our local environment has really affected the things that we do to build a boat that will attack any other environment. Like, if you take the worst, it should go do the least, but the least doesn't necessarily go do the worst kind of thing. So rough water stuff, carrying a heavy load, running a long way, fishing the days that you want to fish, not the days that say it's a good day to fish.
No, I mean, I got to go out on the Delta 18 with my buddy Austin Young, and I was waiting. He picked me up to the airport with it. We were headed out. I'm looking at the weather. I'm waiting for him to be like, dude, this is a bad idea. And we launched it. We ran up to Cooper, and I think it was Cooper, and we had the wind going against the tide, so perfect wind chop, and not once was I like, this is a bad idea. Like, man, this thing is riding great. Went, picked up one of my buddies, fished a flood, and I mean, we could go everywhere we needed to go. It was perfect. And then, we got lucky and it calmed down once the wind laid down and the tide switched and it laid down. But, I think just for that one day I got to ride around on it, we put it through a ringer of situations, and I was really impressed. I really liked it.
I appreciate it. It's it's, I know, I see everything that I want to fix every time I get on one of them. And I'm living in a vacuum as far as that goes, because I don't get to fish on a lot of other people's boats much anymore. And I really enjoy that. Yeah. Because it kind of makes me question, did we do this right? Or could we change this? Or, man, we did better on this. We did worse on this. But it's Austin Ace has been a phenomenal ambassador for us. Like, I mean, as far as like really putting things through our paces, that's one of the things that we don't get to do, is spend a ton of time on the water on our boats all the time. And we're here trying to get them built. So it's nice to have that, the personnel in place externally that is pushing hard for it to do what they want to do, not what we want to do, what they want to do. And if we check boxes, awesome. And if we don't, okay, we need to address this next time we go do an overhaul kind of thing. So, but it is cool to have a little boat that can do a lot of big boat things.
So you guys got a pretty cool project you guys have going on right now, the Delta Waterfowl Tour.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
One, I really want to go ducking once a year. But no, these boats, we want them to be able to check a lot of boxes. Mm-hmm. And I think when we looked at our X18 and we looked at the X7 and 13 and 24, like the X7, 13, and 24 were all like really advanced bottom running surfaces. They involved a lot of like carbon and like different composites to help get these certain things. And our X18 was really basic. And that was the awesome part about it, is it was really basic. And prices kept going up and up and up. And we started looking at, and a lot of it was the rigging and things that we had to do to get these things to be the super custom boat. Like, well, there needs to be something that's like a John boat. Like, I had a John boat and been on a lot of adventures on a John boat, and they did it really well. And it was a red fuel tank and a tiller motor, and off we go. And so we started going back and saying, like, if we don't cut any corners on how we build something, like, can we get a price down to a price point where like you can have this introductory, like this first level boat buy-in that was still built really well. And so that's where kind of Delta came from. And we built an olive green boat for a good friend of mine in Pawleys Island, Glen, we joked that was the Delta edition because we'd never built an olive green one before. And started looking like, well, I've built up to 10,000 terrible duck blinds on boats my whole life. And what if we built this boat really sparse. We made it to where, we could hit a under $30,000 price point boat motor trailer package on this thing. Like, how do we do it? And so it went over insanely well. Like, and it's been great, like, to be that boat for people, whether it be a guide boat, a secondary guide boat, like you're talking about a guy that's got a bay boat that has this, or to, be somebody's boat that can modularly build onto it. And we wanted to showcase the versatility of what we were making to where it didn't have to be just a technical poling skiff. Because that was one thing that when we would go do boat shows, it's like, well, that's a flats boat. Yeah. And you're like, well, man, you didn't have the chance to stop there and go, wait, like, that's not what this is. And so taking the pole and tower off, and we built a couple of them early that guys were just using for like runabouts, and they really did well, and they were cool looking, like without the pole and tower and this cool little center console set up, and like a little mini bay boat. And so that's kind of where Delta spawned off of, and then we started looking at, well, we want to show how good this thing is for an all-around outdoorsman kind of boat. And we had the Savannah Boat Show. And so it's like, well, let me build a blind on one side of the boat. And let's kit one side out like you're hunting, and let's kit the other side out like you're fishing. So when it showed up, like, you had this thing. And so, like I said, I've built enough terrible duck blinds in my life on boats, and I now have this welding department that can, like, overbuild and, whatever I'm asking for. And so we went and laid out and built this frame that clipped into the boat, and it was super, like, it was going to be really cool when it came together, because you could shoot out of it like an A-frame on land. So, like, you could pull up to a place in the marsh if you didn't want to hunt the boat. In 2 minutes, you could pick the whole frame up and set it on the bank, and it weighed 32 pounds grassed. And you could set it on the bank, and you could close it in, and you could shoot out of it like a permanent blind. Or you could put it in the back of your pickup truck and carry it to a field, cornfield, and shoot geese out of it. Like, you could do all these things with it. It was a Swiss Army knife. And I was like, we need to go showcase this thing. And everybody here is also like an avid user of what we do, not just like making these things. And we all like to hunt and fish. And I was like, shit, we need to go do something with this and create, this story, because the film and the imagery of going on these trips is what started this. And I did not want to lose sight of I really want to continue to do those things. And so we came up with this Delta waterfowl tour, and I'm fortunate enough to in my career work with a lot of waterfowl companies. I had a duck call business when I was in high school, making hand carving duck calls, and got to know a lot of the guys in that space. And so reached out to a couple of people around, Migra Ammo down in Charleston, Drew and Q-Tip. Like, those guys are just they're just like we are. And it was awesome. They were in South Carolina, and made these new little relationships that we've just fallen in love with. And same working with the guys at Duck Camp, with Turtle Box, with Well Do Kennels. It's got this black dog sitting down here behind me asleep. But really not so much to have sponsors, but to have syndicates to help us tell our story. Mm-hmm. That if we're going to share it, that can we help you with stuff and you help us with stuff? And that's kind of the way that this whole thing has been for me since the beginning. Even with the XPLOR project, I didn't want sponsors, I wanted teammates. And I tell that to everybody in the bag too, I need teammates. And teammates mean that you pull your weight and everybody's rewarded together, and if you don't, you get cut from the team. And so that's kind of how Delta started. And we started looking at this waterfowl thing, and well, shoot, we're going to go, we'd love to go to Louisiana and go redfish in the fall too. Well, if we can shoot ducks when we're down there too, that's like a double whammy. We're good on both. And so we just, and I've had Sprinter vans for a while since my kids were growing up and playing a bunch of soccer. And I had a 4-wheel drive Sprinter van before and was in a bad accident hit back in March, and just got this new one. So we kitted the whole new one out with everything that I'd wanted to do to the other one, to have it where it not sleeps 4 to 6 people, refrigerator, TV, all these things, rod racks, gun racks, all this stuff. And let's hit the road and go just hang out. Take whoever wants to go hunting with us, whoever wants to go fishing with us, jump on the boat, and let's go have some fun doing this, because that's what you're supposed to, go have some fun. And so we put that together. We just got back from Louisiana. We were down there for a little over 8 or 9 days, 10 days probably total travel down there. Fished with some awesome guys, Ty Hibbs, who's just one of the best people on the face of this planet. Had a great time with him. Dave Best, who's another just superb human beings. Forrest Lagarde, 3 guys that really helped us get that trip be successful from a capture standpoint, if you will. But so cool going to see. I think one of the things that we're super fortunate to be able to see is kind of this waterman culture in all these different locations is really unique and really cool in a very different way than what we are used to here in South Carolina, where there's a certain species that go, like ours with shrimping here. It provides a certain set of what this person needs to look like. And then you go to the Northeast, and the whaling culture and all this stuff is just, it's so cool to see the differences in those things. And Louisiana is very much its own animal when it comes to that stuff. We go for days about that, and Ty's working his butt off to try to hopefully fix some of the things down there. But just really neat to go see different places, and the boats do their things in different places, and hang out at the boat ramp and see a bunch of guys we hadn't seen out. Alan Kane, guy from North Carolina that goes down there. Brandon Keck, who I filmed with some before. And just run back into some of these folks that we don't get to see all the time, talk to a handful, but get to go hang out and break bread with those dudes, and just kind of enjoy some of the fruits of our labors that we have worked very, very, very hard for, to get out there and do. And then the second kind of leg of this won't involve the boat, but it's involved us going on an adventure. And that's what we want to go do. And so me and my boys, I've got a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old are loading back up in the van and going to hunt with a customer of ours out in Missouri, Aaron McCauley, who's a super good dude. And then going from there across Nebraska, Wyoming, and Montana, just kind of rolling with the flow, living out of the van for 2.5 weeks. And they will be filming and documenting this, which so y'all, it's either you need to take a Dramamine before you watch it from all the shaking and moving around, or it may be bad. It may be it'll. I may be the only fan of it, but then we're going to try and come back in January and do some East Coast stuff. In the Northeast, doing some sea duck stuff and some old squalls, potentially up in Maryland, Virginia, Delaware, and then down to the Panhandle of Florida to do some redhead bluebill, ringer, and then fishing stuff on the other side of that. Those will probably be 2 to 4 day jaunts when the weather is right and the birds can get in there. And then we're in the boat show season, right? And like that is a very intense time of year for anybody in the space with Miami Boat Show, hopefully debuting our new Delta 23, which is a plug I showed you today that I'm super excited about. And then, the time flies when you're having fun, I guess. But it's a lot that we have a lot of moving parts we got going into next year. A whole new dealer network that we've been working really hard to get set up that gives a lot more exposure to us and kind of extends our reach of who we are and where we're located. So yeah, I mean, tons of great stuff going on. Need to get out of Texas. I'm dying to. I told you earlier I would live in Texas if I didn't live here. But excited to come back out there and see some more of that landscape too. Because I fished in Corpus Christi a long time ago, and then I fished Port O'Connor, and after that I hadn't been back out there. So I would love to do some sort of trip across Texas at some point too.
Just sneak in the truck with Ace when he comes out.
Yeah. I'll bring it. I'm not riding in his truck out there. I can promise you that. I'm riding mine. But I wanted to bring the van out there in the double trailer, the double hauler, and do just come hang with us and go fishing. And
yeah, you can get, man. I mean, everything you talked about with the adventures and exploration that you've done, like, it could keep you busy in Texas for a long time.
Yeah. Well, all the different cool stuff you can use your boat for, not just going fishing, but like some of the quail hunting on those outer islands and stuff like that is just badass. And then the wing shooting, even the deer hunting and stuff in some of those places where you can access it from water is super cool. And the people, like I said, that waterman culture, it's different there than it is here. And getting to hang out with those guys that love the same thing you love for a little bit different reason is always fun.
Yeah, for sure. No, we'd love to have you come out. It'd be awesome. Yeah,
man. We can load up the van and the boats and come to a big road show and come see some folks out there for sure.
Yeah. All right, last question. This is the one question I always forget to ask, but I always mean to ask it. We're going to ask the Hunter Levine version of this. If you were found yourself on death row and they said instead of a last meal, you get a last fishing trip, where are you going? What are you fishing for? Or hunting. We'll throw hunting in there for you.
That's a tough one. I have no idea. I mean, I'd love to say I'd like to go shoot ducks in Canada. I really love going up there and doing that stuff. Honestly, wherever my kids would like to go do would be where I would want to go. I mean, it's funny now. I'm lucky that they want to go with me a lot, and they're getting my older one's getting the age where I'm not as cool anymore. But I go by myself, and I'm like, man, I don't know why am I out here right now? I think anything with them would be where I want to be. If that's my last, hopefully I'm not on death row. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's, just wherever they are is where I want to be. That's if they want to go bass fishing in a pond in the neighborhood, I'm good. If they want to be somewhere exotic, I'm good.
One of the things, that if I could go back in time and tell myself when I was in high school, it's, go fish every neighborhood and golf course bass pond that you can get into, because when you're that age, you just get slapped on the wrist and have to leave. Yeah, you try to do it when you're in 30s and 40s.
Oh, you can't.
You're getting trespassing charges.
I'll leave you this one we had. So we live on a golf course, and I'm not a golfer. We shoot geese with our bows on the golf course, and my kids go bass fishing. But before Frankie had, my son's name's Frankie as well, before he had a cell phone, I had just 2 portable VHF radios, and we left one on at the house. And then I built him this little ditch bag and stuck his VHF radio in there. And he would call me like, the superintendent's coming. We're running through the woods. And then we've had the cops calling and like, oh, we picked your boys up doing this. I'm like, well, that's what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be trying to figure out how to get into a bass pond when they're not able to right now.
And I'm going to tell this real quick because your son goes to the same high school I went to. So when I was a senior, we got permission from the school and from the parents to leave campus at lunch. And so me and my buddies, and this is back when Cardinal Newman was over on Forest Drive. Mm-hmm. So we would bring lunch and we would go fish all the bass ponds right by the school right there. Yeah. And we ended up with cops on top of us a few days thinking we were ditching school.
Yeah, no, I literally, like, I had my 2 boys, Gabriel and Frankie, and then one of their buddies, like, I think I've had the cops called 4 or 5 times already on them for me. And I always tell them tell the police officer doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Like, they're not out there dealing drugs. They're trying to figure out what worm to go catch that bass that's on the bed. Like, I'll take that trouble any day of the week. Any day of the week. And but yeah, and that's what, probably for you too. Like, that was the seed for me growing up that let me get out and go do that thing. So it's thank God for little bass ponds in the neighborhood.
Exactly.
That's about as good as it gets.
Well, I can't thank you enough for having me up, showing me around. I'm excited to see what you guys got planned for the future.
Yeah.
See some of the duck hunting. Spend some more time with Ace down there in Charleston. If you guys are interested in checking out XPLOR Boatworks, I'm going to leave some links down below. Yeah. What's the website?
XPLOR, XPLOR Boatworks.com. And there's links from there to the Delta Boatworks website, but it's delta-boatworks.com. And then Instagram is at XPLOR Boatworks. You can find out everything we're doing there. The waterfowl tour stuff's all getting posted right now. There'll be a little bit of delay just so we can get through and sort through all the stuff. But a couple of days after we do it, it'll go live. And then, like I say, my kids are in charge of the western leg. So get your popcorn out if you want to stay and watch that one. I don't know how good it's going to be or not, but they're doing that. And yeah, if you're ever in Columbia and want to see how boats are put together, whatnot, we love having people here. So more than welcome to come through, and we'll give you the nickel tour, how we do things. It's been a pleasure having you here today. It's always good to have a small world knowing somebody's from here. Yeah. And I've followed your stuff too, and have been inspired to go get outside and go do. Our tagline here at XPLOR is go anywhere, go everywhere. And it's good to see you've inspired me to go anywhere and go everywhere some more. I hope I can do the same for y'all at some point. But thank you for your time. It is not it's humbling to have people here to listen to what we got to say.
No, thank you. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, any of those, if you guys can give me a 5-star review, share it with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, hit like, hit subscribe.
Smash that subscribe
button. And share with your friends. That's it.
Absolutely, dude. Appreciate it.
All right.